Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm honored and privileged to welcome a very senior and accomplished officer from the Indian Air Force from Greater Noida, India, Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor. Air Marshal Kapoor, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Ashutosh.
Air Marshal Kapoor has recently retired from the Indian Air Force. He has held several key strategic positions in the IAF, and he's been a board member of the Pavan Hans Limited from 2017 to 2020. And just before we started recording, I understand he's also now beginning to make a debut on television channels, giving his vast experience so that all of us can hear it. So my first question to you, Sanjeev, with over 8,000 hours of flying and 4 decades of service, what was the inspiration for you to pursue a career in the Indian Air Force?
My father was in the Air Force, and as a child, I always admired and saw the way he used to prepare his uniform for next day's
Hmm.
work.
Hmm.
And I also joined a military school. I studied in Chel and Ajmer military schools.
Hmm.
And when you start wearing uniform or when you start being with the uniform people,
Hmm.
it some way leaves an indelible mark on your personality.
Correct.
I appeared for NDA after my schooling.
Hmm.
I joined NDA in January of 1982.
Hmm.
Of course, 72% students who apply for NDA, the first choice is Air Force.
Correct.
And I also filled up Air Force. And
Hmm.
was lucky to go through right till the end.
Amazing. Amazing. And you made it right to the very top. But my next question is that one of the things that you excelled at, and you were telling me a little bit before, was that you were the commandant of the National Defense Academy, where all army officers go through that. What key challenges did you face while inducting the first batch of girl cadets, and how did you overcome these challenges?
Hey, I was commandant of Air Force Academy before I went to
Hmm.
a call one day from the CDS, late General Rawat. And he told me that we are starting to induct the girls at NDA. It's the first time. So I was looking at a person who has been involved in the training of the girl cadets and who can now replicate the whole thing. So do you mind going to NDA? So he said, I'll just give you a term there to set up the girls' induction. So as you gather, it's a male dominated kind of a training
Correct.
academy for last 70 years.
Hmm.
So now to suddenly have girls coming at National Defense Academy. The challenges which I faced while having inducting this thing is first was the age group of these girls who were coming.
Hmm.
These girls, all the other girls in IMA, Naval Academy, Air Force Academy come after graduation and they are adults.
Hmm.
Biggest challenge is the girls which were earmarked to come to NDA were young kids. So the
Hmm.
POSCO Act, the other acts were also had to be. So the first step it was taken is to make their accommodation,
Hmm.
their staying place. We had to modify the whole thing, sensitize people,
Hmm.
earmarking of the benchmarking of the the physical standards because obviously the girls cannot run as fast as boys. The
Correct.
girls cannot climb rope
Hmm.
in the manner in which a
Yeah.
boy does.
Hmm.
But yet they have to be brought to. So what would be the scale of their progression?
Hmm.
Things like that was worked out during.
Hmm. Hmm. And that must have been actually defining for the entire batch of first girl cadets because since then it's become a big um, entry of girls into the entire defense services. But my next question for you, and before I come to a few questions on the Indian Air Force, that you have held numerous leadership roles. How do you define leadership in the armed forces, and how is it different in today's evolving environment?
See, leadership. There are three parts to leadership. I always put
Yeah.
it this way.
Mm.
What a leader is. Second is what a leader knows.
Mm.
And third is what a leader does.
Mm.
So why are military leaders different from the other leadership?
Hmm.
To put it simply, for the benefit of your viewers and people who have a little less knowledge on the uniform
Yeah.
side, there is no profession in the world
Hmm.
on your command
Hmm.
your subordinate is willing to lay down his or her life.
Correct.
That is the kind of most sacrifice. See, he is following you. He, that Jawan, the soldier, the pilot in a formation, everybody in this whole take
Hmm.
is just looking up to you.
Hmm.
He has devoted his whole life to you.
Hmm.
He is aware that you are here to take care of him
Hmm.
while he is there and to take care of his family in case he is not there.
Hmm.
This feeling is something which very few people can understand. And this
Right.
is what leadership is. When General Bipin Rawat expired after
Yeah.
a helicopter
Hmm.
crash,
Hmm. Hmm.
your viewers and other people, I would just give a simple example of
Hmm.
leadership.
Right.
Lakhs and lakhs of people were following his cavalcade for the funeral. Now, none of them have met General Rawat. General Rawat has not met any of them. General Rawat has not made a difference in their lives in any way, nor have they in any way associated with the army or anything. But
Hmm.
they subconsciously felt
Hmm.
that he's our leader.
Correct.
I think so. When Ratan Tata just
Yeah.
expired,
Hmm.
this is leadership.
Correct.
This is leadership when lakhs of people on Marine Drive and other areas are going, in the cavalcade to pay the respects to Ratan Tata.
Correct.
This is leadership in just which I was just mentioning.
Absolutely. And I just love this definition. Nobody has ever given me this definition that what a leader is, what a leader knows, and what a leader does. Fabulous definition. Thank you. So let's now talk about the Indian Air Force. And let's now come to today. What are some of the biggest air challenges India faces today, given the geopolitical landscape in our neighborhood?
See, the collaboration between our western neighbor and our northern neighbor
Yeah,
is something which is absolutely worrisome for us.
correct.
We as a nation have been for last decades relying on imports for our equipment.
Hmm.
If you look at India, India has excelled in those verticals where there was denial of technology by the advanced countries, be it nuclear, be it missiles, be it space. These countries refuse to share this technology with us. So India has developed. But it suited somewhere
Hmm.
globally
Hmm.
to be, dependent on them for arms and ammunition because that's a huge business. War is a
Correct.
huge business.
Correct.
So India became a net importer of this. And like I was in a podcast a few days ago, I was just mentioning the thing about the aero engines for the
Hmm.
aeroplanes. You would have
Hmm.
heard
Hmm.
about LCAs. People would have heard about shortfall in our
Hmm.
production of aircraft.
Yeah.
Now, I must share for your viewers and the people who will watch this podcast, designing and fabricating a aero engine is akin to designing and fabricating a nuclear reactor.
Hmm. Wow.
It's such a fine skilled thing. On
Hmm.
this engine is everything mounted about that aeroplane. So what happens is nobody is willing to share this technology with you.
Hmm.
And what India has to do now is to be aware of
Hmm.
the challenges which lie both our western side and
Hmm.
northern side.
Hmm.
And the most worrying aspect is the collusion of these two
Hmm.
in terms of training, equipment, deployments. That's a worrisome.
Very interesting. And you have been at the top of the Indian Air Force over the last 4 decades. How have you seen technology evolve in the IAF over the years?
Oh, it's huge. We used to have those phones when I
Correct.
joined, on the field. So
Hmm.
in a tent, on deployment, on a
Hmm.
detachment, we used to just dial and speak. We used to book a call, a
Yeah.
trunk call, and wait,
Lightning calls. Yeah.
lightning calls and wait. And then I remember in the 90s, this phones came. You had to wait for personal calling one-fourth
Yeah.
the rate, after 10 p.m. or 11 p.m.
Yeah.
And services were way better. We used to book a call, we used to get it.
Mm.
But from there today, we have come to something called as network integration.
Correct.
And I was joking with my father. My father and all their generation began, writing on a wooden plank in
Correct.
school,
Mm.
and they were now on Siri, giving command, and
Mm.
Siri is taking them, or touch screens are helping them. See the transformation in our parents' generation.
Yeah.
And similar transformation is happening now in the services in the air,
Mm.
wherein today, on a push of a button, you can get a real-time picture
Correct.
of the airspace. At
Mm.
the United States for an exercise in 2008, red flag.
Mm.
At that
Mm.
time, the forces were flying over Afghanistan. And they took us to an ops room where in 2008, I saw the drones and the UAVs controlled from Air Force Air Base in Nevada.
Mm.
So the satellite integration to your equipment, the real time. Now the fascinating part is artificial intelligence,
Mm.
and today the detection, earmarking of the targets is something
Mm.
fantastic. It's
Very
fantastic.
interesting.
It's change that I have seen.
Yeah. And since you spoke of artificial intelligence, that's a good segue to my next question. How do you see AI shaping the future of aerial warfare and defense systems?
You you and your viewers, if you're watching how this wars at both the fronts,
Yeah.
for the perspective of your viewers, we were all brought up when we were growing in short and swift war conception. We were
Mm.
taught and we planned that
Mm.
war will last, like India Pakistan war of 71 for 15 days
Mm.
or for 8 days. So then both the parties decide, come on a negotiating table, and
Mm.
you decide that okay, but today, if you look at it, for last I think so 500 days is the Russia-Ukraine war
Yeah.
going on, nearly
Mm.
500 days.
Mm.
And from October 7th of 2023, the Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah,
Correct.
and Iran war is going on.
Mm.
So the wars today have become prolonged wars.
Mm.
Wars today have become, which will stretch all the resources of the nation.
Mm.
It's so demanding and taxing on the country's economy, these wars which are going to take place.
Mm.
AI now, the first war in which technology was used was the Gulf War of 1991,
Mm.
where the Americans started to use space part of it.
Correct.
Now, after space part, which is being, if you follow the war, the Ukrainians in the beginning, their internet and other things were cut off.
Mm.
To the rescue came Starlink. And then the Starlink started to, help the NATO and the other forces which were helping
Mm.
Ukrainians. The AI today, the Chinese have mastered the art.
Mm.
Chinese today have realized that they will fight a non-contact war.
Mm.
The Chinese have realized that they have to work more and more on integrating AI with the satellite communication and
Mm.
data.
Mm.
The next war is going to be fought on data. The data
Understood.
collection
Mm.
of all your trials, your sorties, your missions, the exercises which the Army and the Navy does would be put through these machines, and the AI will give you a response as to what are the capabilities, how much would they be able to perform under these conditions. If
Mm.
you attack at this time, this is the capability. If you
Mm.
want to defend, this would be the weapons they are carrying. If you want, so this is where the AI is coming.
Amazing. 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 The other frontier, Sanjeev, that people are saying is that's going to challenge the world is the space. And this is the next set of wars are going to be fought in space. And I understand President Trump in his earlier term had actually announced a space force. How are we in India preparing for the challenges from space?
See, we are the fourth country and the first to put down our space module,
Hmm.
space equipment on the southern side of moon
Correct.
with no help from
Hmm.
outside.
Hmm.
So I told you in the beginning that
Hmm.
things which were denied to us, we have accepted.
Hmm.
So now this Atmanirbhar Bharat,
Hmm.
the platform on which we are moving, is a step in the right direction, wherein
Hmm.
we are becoming self-reliant in a lot of fields, and space is
Hmm.
one such front. So
Hmm.
there are a lot of agencies in our country. One is the Tri-Service Space Agency,
Hmm.
Army, Navy, Air Force. Each service has its own vertical, and there's a Tri-Service under the CDS.
Hmm.
Then we have organizations of ISRO. Then we have a Department of Space Research.
Yeah.
Then we have an organization called InSpace. So now what is happening is their people are coming with the forces.
Hmm.
Forces people are going to them. And a lot of people who have had experience in verticals
Hmm.
are collaborating to launch the service specific satellites and the equipment. So
Hmm.
that is the progress which is
Very
happening.
interesting. And you just spoke about Atmanirbhar, which is my next question. How critical are indigenous technologies to achieve self-reliance for the IAF or for the other defense services?
See, I told you, we have a lot of way to catch up
Hmm.
in the fields.
Hmm.
We started very late.
Hmm.
Uh, we just began a few years ago with
Yeah.
Whole Heart. Our niche technology, we can make a lot of things in our country today.
Hmm.
The MSMEs, the sectors which are manufacturing defense
Hmm.
equipment are many. They
Hmm.
manufacture a lot of things. But where I feel as a nation we need to invest is research and development.
Hmm.
Need the schools and colleges, like in the West, to invest money and effort in providing young students the platform and the know-how to go ahead and do the research. In USA, about $400 billion are spent on research
Hmm. Hmm.
annually. There, the private industry has a huge role. So, in my opinion, if we have to replicate in some way
Hmm.
the big defense manufacturing companies, the private companies in our country, and that is the Tata, the Reliance,
Yeah.
the Adani, the L&Ts, the
Hmm.
Bharat Forges, and all these have to come together, have a pool of research,
Hmm.
funding, wherein we go to IITs, we go to the best educational institutions.
Hmm.
Because guys, give them 2 or 3 years of period, incentivize their research,
Hmm.
then parallelly pitch them with the armed forces.
Hmm.
Or like LC also, there are three things. One is designing, one
Hmm.
is developing, and third is manufacturing.
Correct.
So manufacturing to an extent we have reached.
Hmm.
Developing is a part where we are lacking. We
Hmm.
are lacking in niche because we be it manufacturing of aero engines, be it
Right.
manufacturing ejection seats, be it manufacturing of avionics, radars,
Hmm.
we have gone.
Hmm. Very interesting. So, Sanjeev, you told me about about space. The other area which we are already seeing challenges in is cyber warfare. Given the kind of technology you spoke about, how prepared are we, or how should we prepare to guard our assets against cyber attacks?
See, I am aware about the Air Force. We have a dedicated, totally a separate line for our communication.
Hmm.
So this cannot be jammed or cannot be hacked.
Okay.
So what happens is that earlier we were relying on help from somebody.
Correct.
So a few years ago, the Indian Air Force has set up its own AFNet,
Hmm.
and of course with the help of private
Yeah.
sector, we have
Hmm.
set it up. We have all the access to this internet.
Hmm.
Cyber is a real threat because the first sign of any conflict,
Hmm.
there will be a cyber attack.
Hmm.
Your missile, your radars, your shipping, your logistics, your aerodrome terminals would be hit.
Hmm.
What happens is we are so reliant on our computers today that
Correct.
we just take things for granted.
Hmm.
But it is just in seconds that will go away.
Hmm.
If your systems are hacked, you are attacked, or there is a breakdown, genuine breakdown, this whole ecosystem of our working, the banks, your air travel, your rail travel,
Okay.
your communication, your transportation, all will come to a grinding halt.
Mm.
So in services, what we do is we always prepare and exercise with plan B.
Yeah.
The way we had done these things when these things were not available.
Mm.
So these are regularly practiced, these are regularly trained on. So immediately we switch on to our conventional ways which we did. So this is how
Mm.
we did.
Mm.
But you are absolutely correct that cyber is a, and the services have put in place
Mm.
to guard against the cyber
Mm.
attacks.
Mm. And given all that you've already told me about space, about the new types of aircraft, about indigenized aircraft, uh, how is the Indian Air Force preparing its young leaders or young future pilots for the challenges of the 21st century with new technologies coming in?
See, when we flew as cadets,
Okay.
when we were doing a pilot training, we flew with muscular and neuro skills.
Correct.
And you would have seen, all of your viewers would have
Mm.
seen a movie called Sully.
Mm.
It's a Hollywood movie. It's a true story
Correct.
wherein after getting airborne from New York, JFK, there's a bird hit and he puts down the aeroplane in Hudson River.
Correct.
We are actually taught in military
Mm.
those things. The civil
Mm.
pilots are not. The
Mm.
difference between a civil pilot training and a military pilot training is very different.
Mm.
We are taught by the field.
Right.
Pilot is taught initially on the field, the
Mm.
turn, the pitch, the roll, the yaw,
Correct.
spin,
Correct.
barrel. We feel that we are part of that machine.
Mm.
And today, the skills are different. Today, we need scholar warrior pilots.
Right.
It means if you see, we are teaching now BTech to ND cadets. We
Wow.
didn't have any of these things.
Mm.
Artificial intelligence is taught to the cadets in NDA, in Air
Amazing.
Force Academy.
Mm.
The net-centric warfare, the data transfer, the cyber attacks, the space developments are taught to the cadets.
Mm.
So when he sits in the cockpit in modern aircrafts today,
Mm.
they
Mm.
are well connected. They are aware of the. See, for your viewers and people who are not associated with flying,
Mm.
flying is the most difficult skill
Mm.
which one has to learn. Why?
Mm.
Person who's flying alone in that cockpit, I'm talking of the single
Yeah.
engine primarily,
Mm.
or a single seater aircraft, all the systems which exist in the aeroplane, everything he has to know. He
Mm.
has to know about hydraulics, he has to know about pneumatics, he has to know about engines, he has to know about air conditioning, he has to know about ejection seat, he has to
Right.
know about the bombs, he has to know
Mm.
about. He's alone. Plus, he has to know about air traffic control, he has to know
Mm.
about weather, he has to know about meteorology, he has to know about. So, the training process
Mm.
to make a military pilot
Mm.
is taught 18 subjects along with the skill sets which
Mm.
are needed for him to go alone and face any kind of an emergency. The
Mm.
emergencies are phenomenal there. You may have a fire, you may
Correct.
have a hang up, you may have an engine failure,
Mm.
you may have a pylon flying off, you may have an undercarriage not coming
Mm.
down, you may
Mm.
have a air conditioning failure, you may have anything,
Yeah.
smoke in the. So he not only has to know the actions, he has to be prepared to take this thing. It's a
Mm.
huge
Amazing.
responsibility.
Amazing. 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 I have time for two more questions for you.
Yes, please.
Uh, when we started, you were telling me about our two neighbors. So I want to ask you, in a two-front war scenario, how prepared is India's air power to respond both conventional and unconventional threats?
The one line answer is the work is on.
Okay.
To elaborate what I just said, war, like any other situation, like in the boxing or in chess, it is after the next move. So your enemy is acquiring some technology, your enemy is acquiring some capability. makes you now think that what would be his next move? Are we prepared? Do we have to relocate something? Do we have to, add something to our arsenal?
Mm.
Do we need to train our people to take on this new development?
Mm.
So we are prepared, though the number of squads are going down. It's in the media. But what we are getting, say Rafale, is
Mm.
equivalent capability wise 3 to 4 MiG 21s.
Mm.
So don't go on the numbers. These airplanes carry much more. These machines can fly much longer, much faster with air-to-air refueling, with AVAX, with satellite communication.
Mm.
We are prepared. We are prepared.
Amazing. Amazing. And my last question for you, and this is for you personally. As you look back on your own illustrious career, and I forgot to mention that you are a PhD as well, what is the legacy you hope to leave for the future generations of air warriors?
I was fortunate to command the Air Force Academy also,
Mm.
along with the National Defense Academy. It's a very unique privilege which somebody
Mm.
gets. When I see the young, bright eyes of the cadets or the
Mm.
young people, when I went for the NCC Republic Day, I did a podcast with NCC students and I
Mm.
addressed them. I see the bright eyes of the future of this country.
Mm.
India has to be a global leader, if we have to be a Vishwa Guru, which the Honorable Prime Minister has said that by 2047 we would be one.
Yep.
These are the people. These are the people
Correct.
today who are in school, colleges, NCC, in academies who are going to lead this country.
Well said.
So I find tremendous potential, tremendous fire. One of the best pilots I've seen are the women pilots which are coming. I've seen the finest professionals. So gone are the days when we had typecasted a particular role for a particular gender. It's fantastic, and it is going to be a massive change which the world is going to see. And the Indian spirituality, the Indian way of life, the top MNCs being led by people of Indian origin, the top scientists of Indian origin, the top doctors of Indian origin, top research people of Indian origin. And there is something fascinating about this land and these people.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we are starting to harness now.
Amazing. And on that very, very positive note, Marshal Kapoor, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me about your own amazing journey. You were telling me not only was your dad in the army, but your children are also in the services. Thank you for talking to me about the challenges you faced when you brought in the first girl cadets. I'm going to repeat what you told me about a leader, what how important is what a leader is, what a leader knows, and what a leader does is a very new perspective I have heard about leadership. Thank you for talking to me about technology, about space, about cyber warfare. We discussed artificial intelligence, and of course, we discussed the wars of the future. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashutosh. Lovely being with you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.